My name is Patricia Book, and I have the privilege of being a leadership fellow with WCET this year, as Molly mentioned. And I'm really looking forward to this next panel. I really thank the first panel for providing this broad national state accreditation environment, a context for us. As I think you can see, the Leadership Summit was really designed around the practice and lessons learned, and we really want you to leave this summit with armed with knowledge about new models, the kinds of questions to ask, any lessons learned so you can avoid the pitfalls that some of the early adopters have run into. So we want it to be very practice-oriented, and that is the point of this panel. You can see we have a few folks up here to share ideas with, and this is a really excellent group, I think. We have Allison Leigh Brown, Associate Vice President with Northern Arizona University's Personalized Learning. We have Greg Fowler, Chief Academic Officer and Vice President, Academic Administration with SNU's Online and Continuing Education program, and among other things, Greg has been with WGU in the past, so I think he's going to bring a wonderful perspective. We have Elle Lind, who is Vice President, Innovation and E-Learning with Kentucky Council on Postsecondary Education. Laura Pedrick with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee online, helping us think about the flexible option program at University of Wisconsin, and Linda Schott, who is president of University of Maine at Presque. This panel is going to be kind of get us started in thinking about innovation in higher education in general and what they've been doing as innovators in this space. And we've asked them to speak just a few minutes because we do want to get this into a conversation and get your questions before them so that you can get a sense of things that are top of your mind that you want to know more about. We've asked them to talk a little bit about the drivers behind what they've been doing, whether it's their board, their legislature, their leadership, their student demand that got them going with the program that they're doing. Maybe give us just a quick snapshot of their model, and also talk a little bit about the key issue of how faculty have been involved in the development process. So, you know, that's what we've asked them to talk about a little bit. We obviously want to touch upon technology and assessment, and then and be thinking about the kinds of questions you want to ask. But we've asked them to talk about 5 or 7 minutes. So at 7 minutes, I would like you to join me in starting to clap loudly. No, I'm kidding, but sort of. But anyway, let's. So let's start with Allison. Okay?
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. And as you can tell, it was a very easy thing to answer all of those questions in 5 to 7 minutes. But it was made easier by the previous panel. And personalized learning at Northern Arizona University is self-paced, it's competency-based, it's a comprehensive set of degrees. We have 3 degrees that include a major, a minor, a language or a science requirement, and a full general education degree. General education requirement. So we have 3 full degrees. A lot of you have heard many of us talk about that before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the model, but I will spend a little bit of time on why we produced the model. And to quote our former president, because we could. And it was really, really interesting to be at a point in time where there were resource issues and there was a technology that made it possible for us to recombine, reconfigure all of our resources in such a way that we not only maintain quality, we believe we exceed it, and we do it for less money and hopefully for more students. And so we're resource driven to be sure, but we're just as surely quality and humanly driven. And so to that end, I want to start with a quote. And this is from Sigmund Freud in his very short book, Civilization and its Discontent, where he talks about the sort of conflicting urge we have toward creativity and how that conflicts with the demands of civilization and in particular technology. If there were no railway to make light of distances, my child would never have left home, and I should not need the telephone to hear his voice. If there were no vessels crossing the ocean, my friend would never have embarked on his voyage, and I should not need the telegraph to relieve my anxiety about him. And I think that that's where we are. We could make this model because technology made it possible for us to do that. But it doesn't, as Freud showed us so clearly, it doesn't allay all of our anxieties because we have this moment of opening up into creativity and innovation, but we're bound in certain ways by legacy. And we've got old-style pedagogies, old-style software, old-style policies. And one of the things I was going to talk about was federal financial aid as a policy. I'm not going to. I think the previous panel did a really good job of showing how that's difficult. So I'll focus primarily on just 4 things. And one is holistic approach to assessment. And again, the theme is we have the space to be creative because technology makes it possible. Technology makes it possible for us to assess every single thing that we do. We can assess every activity that our students do. We can assess their interactions with their peers. We can assess their interactions with the different roles of faculty. We can assess literally every single thing they do and have a rubric tied to it through technology. The Pearson Learning Outcome Management System is the tool that we use. I think it's fantastic. And so we've got all of this data, and that's great. Okay, so we can do that. And then here's the pull of creativity and innovation. All that data is not interesting, right? Who wants all that? Does anybody want to read through that? No. It's nice to know that it's there, but the creative part, the innovative part, the part that helps us conserve resources is to talk to people, to talk to our accreditors, to talk to the people that matter, the students and the faculty, and to say, what do you need about what we're doing to make what you do better and to have better quality? And so the holistic approach to assessment has the technology piece, but we also balance that with the human piece. The previous panelists talked about the need to talk to industry. We have focus groups that help to shape all of our competencies, including our general education competencies. And one of our majors is in liberal arts. It's an interdisciplinary degree, mostly based in film. Why were we talking to industry about that degree? Because industry likes to hire interesting, well-educated people. They do. And so they're interested in in the liberal arts major, which is our second largest major, by the way, and they want to understand what we think we're teaching and then tell us where they think there's a gap. So again, technology makes it possible for us to assess at a level that's insanely granular, and we can do it, so let's do it, but then let's pull really, really, really smart reports and counter it with human interaction, surveys of students, conversations with students, and conversations with faculty. And that goes straight to evolving faculty roles. Technology made it possible for us to be cheaper. And the previous panelist was correct. The cheaper argument's not a very fun one to talk about. And students don't want to hear it either. Students we have lots of different campuses and extended campuses at Northern Arizona University, and one of our marketing firms marketed one of our campuses as the cheapest place in Arizona to get a degree. Students don't like that. They don't want that. Okay, so the cheap part matters to us when we're balancing our budgets and trying to help out our departments. And the evolving faculty roles, we have a way with technology to maintain content so that faculty can have a very human touch with students. And we can talk more about that in discussion if we want to. But again, the technology makes it possible for us to do that, but then we have to counter it with the human element. And the most important one for us has been talking to industry and then hearing students' responses. The curriculum can also evolve almost in real time. And we make changes to our curriculum as we get feedback from our students. And that, again, was not possible even 5 years ago. But now we can do that, and we can do that because we hire people who have the expertise, not only in their discipline, but who are able to work in HTML. It's not really that hard, but they can just go in and change it, and then we don't make major changes until we do a full version. But students get the benefit of what we learn about our teaching really quickly. So, we can talk a lot about the details of the different models, and I am really looking forward to talking to people about those. But the main lesson I want to leave is that we have a high tolerance and ambivalence for the ambiguity of technology. I'm going to give one concrete example. We had to tie our competencies to credit hour, and we have it on the back end of a very complicated system that adds everything up. We thought we were gold. Okay? We have a problem right now with counting, and there's 2 federal agencies that are worried about the way that some of our students who come in with prior learning only do a certain amount of work translated back to the credit hour for that credit hour, when students who come in without that prior learning do more. And I'll just say this, if you are in a department, say a philosophy department like my own department, the syllabus that's taught by Professor X is different than the syllabus taught by Professor Y, and the students work harder, they've worked harder for me than for some of my colleagues. I'm, disciplinarian, but you know what I'm saying. They work harder, but the technology, because it measures that, makes a sort of counting problem. And so does that make us in despair and alienated? No, we dig into our human self. So to balance that ambivalence and that ambiguity.
Wonderful. Your philosophy professorship comes through, Allison. So we'll go with Greg next.
Hi.
They're ready.
I want you to know that I got braces about 2 months ago, and I'm still getting used to talking with these things. So if I sound a little odd, just raise your hand and say, can you please stop mumbling?
Greg, did you have the scrambled eggs for breakfast?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not.
Just checking.
And I'm going to just come across a couple of quick points, and then, as I said, we'll move to the big things later on. The first thing that we were asked to talk about a little bit is our structure, and I don't know, I know everybody here, I've heard College for America and SNHU in a number of terms so far this morning. One of the things that you have to understand about SNHU is that it actually has 3 verticals operating right now. So there is the College for America, which is the one that gets a lot of the news, the competency-based model, about 800 students currently. But there's also the other 2, the university campus, which has been around for about 100 years, has about 3,000 students, and it's pretty much what you'd expect from a New England college, about its size. It has dorms, sports teams. In fact, we just won our national soccer championship for our league. And we also have just normal things you'd expect there. And then finally, the College of Online and Continuing Education, which is the college of, that I am the person who's the chief academic officer of. So that college has about 38,000 students in it. The College for America has about 800, and the university campus has about 3,000 students or so. Each one of those is important to understand, each of those, because if you know Paul LeBlanc, and I'm sure a number of you in the room do, he's constantly thinking about what's the next big thing that's going to happen in education. What's the next thing that we can innovate about the process that's going to help our students and continue the dialogue of making education available for more people. So about 5 or 6 years ago, when the College of Online and Continuing Education really began to grow, out of that came something called the Innovation Lab. And basically the job there was to say, so we've learned a lot from online, what do we think is going to happen next? And out of the Innovation Lab came the College for America, which is what you now see for the competency-based model. All 3 work very closely together. My colleague was just talking about the holistic approach to assessment. For us, the holistic approach has to be to outcomes. So regardless of which of those 3 verticals you're operating on, they all have to operate with the exact same program outcomes, because the SNHU degree is an SNHU degree. So whether we're talking bachelor's degree now in communication, healthcare management, it's another one that you may have seen in Inside Higher Ed this week, or you're talking psychology, if you're looking at the outcomes across those, what we have to do is create alignment maps for here's how we're going to get there. The metaphor I use a lot is SNHU is located in Manchester, at least its main campus is. If you're trying to get to Boston, I don't really care if you take 95 or 93 or Route 3 as long as you get to Boston. You just have to show us how you're going to get there. So each of those three schools, it's our responsibilities to make sure that when we're looking at outcomes, how those outcomes are measured, the learning resources that are used in those, that those things do align in some methodology. That actually takes a lot of work, but it's a good thing that we believe is helping us keep things moving forward. So one of the things that I would say is critical for if you're talking about innovation is have someone who is comfortable with the idea of thinking outside the box. At the same time, I caution against going the other way. It's very easy in this process to get caught up in the idea of running after every bright, shiny object. One of the things that we've seen a lot of, I was reading an article, I think it was this morning or yesterday morning, on learning management systems and the decisions that people are making about whether to go with Blackboard or Canvas or Desire to Learn. And every other day there's a new digital resource out there, and you can find yourself very quickly going down a path that doesn't actually lead you to where you want to go. One of the things I have to emphasize a lot for our team is to continue to focus on the things that we're supposed to be doing. One, student success. And two, don't try to outdo other businesses when you're trying to do things that you want to help your students with. Sometimes I will tell them, if we're talking social networking, we're never going to Facebook. So why try to do that? We're not in the business of Facebook. We're in the business to do something else. Maintaining that focus is critical to trying to keep things moving forward. How do we come about our outcomes? That's actually an important piece and comes really to the role of faculty. So given the fact that the university campus has been around the longest period of time, when we began to build out the College for Online and Continuing Education, it made sense to make sure that the faculty were the ones from the university campus who really helped us begin to build out those programs. And they continue to play that role. They continue to teach in the online environment. They continue to serve on the councils that we put up. They continue to give us feedback on the learning resources. Same thing is true for when we went to College for America. In that case as well. Are you giving me the, am I already over?
No.
I'm a talker, I apologize. The same thing is true. Getting the campus faculty involved in that process assures that a lot of the things that we would be concerned about from an external body are taken care of when we're having those conversations moving forward. And it also gives us a good sounding board. I often say to them, if we can't convince you, our colleagues here, how are we going to ever convince the universities around the campus that we're doing something good? So being able to talk to them and having that sort of microcosm of the larger national conversation really has served as a benefit. Does that mean that everything is always, flowers when it comes to how we interact with each other? No, but one of the things we do operate on is the faculty role is sacrosanct. That doesn't mean that the faculty have to continue to do the exact same things, but the things that the faculty do need to take place someplace in the institution continuously. That goes for everything from the outcomes and assessment piece to the advising piece to the instructional design piece. And one of the things we make sure is that when we do build out those teams, each one of those groups at COCE operates independently. So there are give or take about 40 instructional designers, about 12 assessment specialists. We have several hundred advisors who operate on a regular basis. But all of those groups must continue to interact with the faculty so that the faculty quality, that the quality that we promise NEASC, who is our regional accrediting body, that we're going to have does operate there. Those are the big things that I think I would say up front, and then I'll open it up to the larger picture as we move forward. But for us, having someone who came in and said, can we think about education in a different way and at the same time maintain academic quality? What are the non-negotiables, and what are the things that, another phrase I say to my team is, you need to know what the non-negotiables are, and everything else is pretty much your ego getting in the way. So knowing over and over again, is there a different way to do those types of things has played a critical role for us.
Thank you very much, Greg. Okay, now we'll hear from Al. I think I've scared them into staying within their 5 and 7 minutes. So, good job.
First of all, let me just say that I'm as glad as most of you are to be here, because I'm learning a lot already today. Molly, thank you for bringing this group of people together. Of experts. This is a terrific conference. Kentucky has actually 3 models, and we're talking about innovative models in this session. And I'm going to point out some subtle innovations that aren't on that chart. But just for orientation, as we get into a Q&A, in Kentucky, there's a learn on demand model, which is in that first column there. There is about to emerge a direct-to-degree model. Both of those are in the two-year sector. And we have embarked on and are working on actually not a four-year model, but a +2 model. The assumption is that it builds on the Learn on Demand and Direct Degree models at our community college system, and then our four-year institutions are going to pick up and have a +2 competency-based online model on top of that called Commonwealth College. Our community colleges in Kentucky are in a system. It's a 16-campus system, and the degree, Learn on Demand or Directed Degree, is available at any of the 16 institutions. There's probably about 6 of those 16 institutions that are the core institutions who develop and fund and deliver, but as a student, you can be at any of the 16 campuses and take advantage of it. There's the area of study. You see the degrees that have been put in place or committed to. One of the things we do, and all of them, is modularize so that we're equal to or less than a single credit hour in each component that the student enrolls in. The tuition is different, big difference between the Learn on Demand model, and one of the reasons for creating the Directed Degree model was to go from a prorated standard tuition amount, paying at the module level rather than a 3-hour credit course level, to a time slice like a number of the other models have. At the universities, it'll be prorated off special tuitions, not the standard tuition, but we'll have special tuitions at the 4-year level. Advising help 24/7, I'm going to mention that again in a minute. Those all look the same, and there's a reason for that. And then launch dates. We've got some experience under our belt with Learn on Demand. It's been highly successful. Launched and took students in 2011. Directed Degree, as soon as we can figure out some financial aid difficulties, we're ready to launch. Hopefully this fall, we'll be admitting the first students in that. And then the Commonwealth College, we're committed to bring degrees online in 2015. So just to give you that orientation, if you want to, in our Q&A, ask questions about any of those three, but a couple of things that aren't apparent on the chart is in our Learn on Demand model, we talk about the role of faculty. One of the things we do with faculty is we pay them per student. As an adjunct, I would come to you and I would say, Molly, would you like to teach in the business curriculum? And Molly says, yes, I've got some time and I've got the credentials. I say, well, how many students would you like to teach? And Molly would say, 80. Which is fine. She could say 50, she could say 100, she could say whatever fits into her. As this is individualized for the student and it's self-paced, competency-based, it's also self-paced for the faculty that we enroll. We will also then have an incentive that if Molly's students do well, she gets paid more. If her students do not do well, she doesn't get paid as much. You want to think about that in your model. I mentioned the 24/7 help and advising. We found that was critical, and that was a missing component early in the implementation. That is an outsourced service to our friends at Blackboard. We have invested a lot of energy in that and delivered it to the Learn on Demand students. It was so successful that the traditional students, traditional online students as well as face-to-face students, learned about the 1-800 number by word of mouth, and they all started calling the 1-800 number for Learn on Demand rather than going to their traditional and approved sources. So our presidents and administrators finally gave up to fight that, and they funded, and that online 24/7 help for students is now available to every student regardless of what your status is in the university. And so far, like I said, the academic and financial numbers are good in Learn on Demand. It's a sustainable business model. It's the student outcomes are exceeding both the face-to-face and the traditional online students. In the direct-to-degree, in addition to going to the time slice, the real big difference there academically is the student takes a single module at a time in serial fashion. So it's very prescribed that when the student declares up front that they're going to be a direct-to-degree student, everything is laid out for them. There's a very narrow sequence with no variations to it. We believe that there is a market out there for students who will do well in that kind of environment. The new one, the Community Commonwealth College, is built on the standards of the Learn on Demand and Direct-to-Degree, and it's had a brief but interesting history just since WCET was nice enough to invite me to come here and mention it. We had a $5 million request into our legislature to fund Commonwealth College. We had recruited legislators. We had executive sponsorship. The governor's office liked it, recommended our budget. The House liked it, recommended our budget. When it got to the Senate, who's a little more financially conservative and needed to slash and burn things, this was one of the programs, unfortunately, that got cut from funding. So it was not funded just a month ago. And we have since kind of regrouped and taken stock and said, well, without $5 million, what can we do with this? And I will tell you that 3 of our universities, the 3 up on the slide, University of Louisville, Western Kentucky University, and Kentucky State University, have said, we will find the monies internally. This needs to go forward. So there will be a Commonwealth College. It will be perhaps a little bit slower in rolling out, perhaps a little not as many degrees as soon as we thought that they were, but the idea is good enough that it doesn't require the incentive of new money to do it, so we're moving forward with it. I'll mention 2 other things. Iris talked about the software. Kentucky, back in 1999, launched something called the Kentucky Virtual Campus, which was designed from the ground up to be a multi-institution environment. And we have developed and evolved the software for a multi-institution environment since that time. So we have that platform for Commonwealth College that we will be basing it on. So we've got a head start there. And the other one is the multi-institution nature of it, I think, is one of the things that is innovative in Kentucky. And if you get into a multi-institution collaboration as you move forward with your competency-based, we stole shamelessly from the Great Plains Network that's run out of Kansas State University, is a multi-state and multi-institution online course organization. But what they have in place from years and years of experience is the governance model of how monies flow and how decisions are made and how things get approved. So we have adopted in Kentucky with these 3 institutions and hopefully then our full 9 institutions down the road, the Great Plains organizational model. Thanks.
Thank you, Al. You covered everything we asked. Wonderful. Laura?
Sure. Great. Thanks so much. Well, before I start, I do have 3 thank yous to make. One is to Aaron Brower, the Chancellor at UW Extension, and his leadership team. UW-Milwaukee on its own would not have been able to mount the flexible option. I want to thank our wonderful program faculty who have approached designing the flexible option with so much creativity and passion. And I'd also like to thank our accrediting body, the Higher Learning Commission, for its support on our development journey. So the drivers of the UW flexible option, I think the first is the most obvious. The flexible option is the 21st century face of the Wisconsin idea. That's an idea that goes back to 1904, then UW President Charles Van Hise. articulated the idea that the boundaries of the university are essentially the boundaries of the state, that the university is an active force for the good across all dimensions of activity in the state. And when we look at the state of Wisconsin, we see many people who start out in college but who don't complete. That's an audience of roughly 700,000 people. And those individuals, the state needs their human capital to advance for the well-being of the state. And as Iris Palmer mentioned, our governor was indeed a strong impetus in moving the flexible option forward. For our particular campus, when Aaron Brower came to our Dean's Council and made a presentation asking for volunteer programs, I think the fact that we had a history of innovation in online, things like our U-paced, self-paced instructional approach, early into market programs like our PhD in nursing, and the fact that our provost had sponsored a 2-year deep dive into thinking about all these transformations that are currently roiling higher education. It's called our digital future planning process. And so we spent a lot of time looking over the chasm at what potentially are very transformative changes in many dimensions, looking at what happened to the airline industry, to book publishing. And I think that, in a sense, primed the pump for jumping in. So the flex option is, I don't need to define competency-based education for this group. Some of the unique wrinkles for our program, it has both an all-you-can-learn full-time option, but also a single competency set option, which we developed after input from employers in the healthcare sector who are, the word legacy has come up a lot. I think that's a theme throughout development of competency-based efforts, is navigating that transition from an old way of thinking about things into this new space. And our employers have that same navigation to do, so they are used to reimbursing on a 3-credit course basis. And so we quickly realized that to enable them to participate and their employees to participate, we needed to go to have a part-time option. Again, we're aimed at adult learners, those with some college but no degree. I get this question a lot about, well, how is that differentiated from your traditional, weird word to use around the word online, your traditional online programs? And I think the sweet spot for competency-based education is not just that you have some college, but that you have some work experience, skills, and knowledge assets that you bring to the job. Those individuals, wow, we have a student right now who started the subscription period like Michael Phelps coming out of the gate. He did 3 competency sets three assessments in 3 days. He was really ready, and he sees that this accelerated pathway will help him reach his degree goal sooner. Let's see. So the definition there, emphasizing what students know rather than how much time was spent learning. Crucial point also, it's been developed with the same UW faculty, and those of you who might be familiar with the University of Wisconsin system, faculty governance is established in state statute, Chapter 36. And that means that we take our faculty curricular oversight very, very seriously, and it does reside with the faculty. And thinking through the new role for faculty as curriculum developer, evaluation assessment developer, assessment evaluator, subject matter expert, refresh person, all of those roles, we needed to get to a place where faculty were comfortable with that role. And I would say that has been sort of the 2 big challenges with our flex development. One has been the technology side and the financial aid overlay into the technology side. I'm not going to go into that. The other has been just the talk time, the workshop time, the thinking through time of the faculty to reach that understanding. And again, as Greg pointed out, I think very well, the essential equivalency across all these modes is really the sort of the guiding North Star for this, that we have equivalency across those modes. Then our offerings, we have a 2-year degree offered by UW colleges, and I think that's tremendously innovative. and because that is in a lot of different liberal arts areas. And our students who have gaps will take their gen eds through the UW colleges. We are finding that the students are coming to us with tremendous amount of credit, and so each one is very individual and different. And then we have 4 degrees at UWM, BSN, a diagnostic imaging degree completion program, a Bachelor of Science in Information Science and Technology, and a certificate in Business and Technical Communication. Then I did want to highlight one thing that I think is relatively low cost and within everyone's grasp, and that is I would signal the importance of partnering with your libraries. Our library has been an outstanding partner. They really understand intentional, self-regulated learning and information seeking. They have developed, our libraries have developed for us using a nationally available software platform called LibGuides, customized library guides for each of our programs, and in fact each of the competency sets in some cases in our programs. This is one for client diversity and health sciences, and you can see that it's a direct portal into the relevant databases. There is an information literacy tutorial. There's live chat. They can register for Flex Library Services. We mail free to students who aren't able to get electronic. If the resource is not available electronically, we mail it to them. And then there are also guide to health sciences information. Our nursing one has a guide to evidence-based practice. So this is something that has been an absolutely essential component of Flex development that I think can get overlooked sometimes, but the librarians will tell you they've been doing this for a very long time, so I would not overlook them as you think about developing in this space. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura. And President Schott.
Megan, I'm just going to ask if you can come help do my slide deck. And I realize there's not much room up here. I'm trying not to use paper. While Megan's pulling this up for me, let me just say what a pleasure it is to be back in the West. I grew up in Texas. I worked for 4 years in Colorado. And even though I am now about as far northeast as you can get, I'm happy to be back in the West. So first of all, our motto at the University of Maine at Presque, where I've been the president now for 2 years, is that personalized learning changes everything. We talk about personalized learning a little bit differently than NAU does, although having heard your presentation, maybe not as differently as I thought. So first of all, let me see, figure out how to work this. The down button? Okay. Drivers, we had a lot. Really, it was me as the president initially, but it's no longer just me. But when I was becoming president, I did a lot of reading about the future of higher education, and this is just one of the books that I found really interesting. If you haven't read it, I heard about it at an AAC&U conference, and I really enjoyed it. It caused me to think about the neuroscience of learning, as well as how can we use student affairs, not just academic affairs, and to really deepen the learning of our students. I also really liked Kathy Davidson's book, Now You See It, and then just read, a huge amount of articles. And so one of the things that I've done is talked with my faculty about the research base in this. And I think that's really helped them get their mind behind it. It's sort of like, wait a minute, you believe in research, so this is the latest research on how people learn, and don't we have an obligation to be teaching in those ways? Also critical for us, very critical for us, is that the state of Maine is a leader in proficiency-based or competency-based education in the public schools. The Maine legislature passed a law in 2012 that by 2018, all public high schools will be graduating students with proficiency-based diplomas. So there's a huge amount of work going on in the state of Maine at the public school level to figure out what this means and how to deliver it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. The third driver was, I taught for 25 years. I'm a historian in women's studies. And we historians know how to lecture to big groups. And I was tired of seeing students look like this. Even though I was a pretty darn good lecturer, I still saw this more than I liked. Going along with that, I have had 5 kids I've educated, 5 children, either adopted or however they came into my life, and none of them have been the traditional good student like I was. And so as a parent, I have struggled to try to find appropriate education for my kids, and this would be my kids in a regular classroom. So it's been very important to me to find the appropriate educational experience for my own children. And I've had them in Montessori schools, I've had them in private schools, I've had them in public schools, I've had them in charter schools. And when they've done the best in any of those environments is when they were engaged, when they had a say in how they learned and how they demonstrated their learning. And so that was in the back of my mind as I was thinking about how I wanted to change higher education at my institution. Finally, Maine has a population problem. We're losing it to here in the Southwest. And the county in which we now live, Aroostook County, is a very big county at the northern part of Maine, but it's losing population. So I was partnering there, talking with employers about what can we do to keep our young people in this area. And another very important thing I was thinking about, in Aroostook County, about 95% of high school students graduate from high school. But our baccalaureate completion rate for that county is about 15%. So the puzzle for me was, where are all those students going and why are we losing them? And we'll never get to 60% of the population with a post-secondary credential if we keep on doing things in the same way. So all of those were drivers for us to begin thinking about doing something differently. Our model is one, well, here, I'm sorry, I forgot all about some of my slides here. This is a critical thing here. You know, about 14,000 Maine seniors graduating with proficiency-based diplomas in 2018. They'll all be used to a new way of learning and demonstrating their learning. And my theory was that they go to a traditional university and they're put in a lecture-based class, and if they're put in large lecture-based classes, many of those students aren't going to succeed. And then we will not get to that 60% of the higher degrees that we're looking for. So our model is really a blending of the very best in high-impact teaching practices in a traditional environment. We are a campus, although we have all of our general education courses are now offered online, and we have 4 programs that are completely online as well. But we want to combine what we know about the very best of how to teach and learn in a traditional model with competency-based assessment to offer personalized education. I talk a lot with our faculty about, and with the community and with parents, about the fact that all learners move at different paces in different areas, and how can we build a college experience that recognizes that. We are rolling out our new model this fall. We'll transform general education this fall. We will transform the rest of our academic programs over the next couple of years. And very importantly, our education program, which used to be a real leader in the state of Maine, had kind of fallen from grace, I guess, a bit. We're rebuilding it, and they are already starting to teach in a competency-based way. It's critical for education in Maine. All of those high schools and elementary schools need teachers who are trained in competency-based education, and they're spending a huge amount of money on retraining the faculty that they have. So we're going to be the state leader in preparing teachers in this new approach, and I'm sure that my graduates in a few years will be snapped up readily. Just very briefly, I won't go into all of this. You know, we have identified our learning outcomes. One reason we're able to move so quickly is because my provost, who was the chair of Arts and Sciences, had been working to reform our general education in line with the LEAP learning outcomes for several years, so we were able to take that and translate it into this new system. But we also articulated now essential learning outcomes for all graduates, and we did this in partnership with folks in academic affairs and with employers. So these are the sort of meta learning outcomes that students will come out with. Then we have our general education learning outcomes, our program learning outcomes, and we have course outcomes, although I don't want that to mislead you, because our program that we're rolling out in the fall is not organized around courses. What we will be doing for general education in the fall, we're going to be offering a series of integrated learning communities. Most of them will be organized around about 10 core competencies. They'll have 3 faculty members, 15 students, and they'll use all those high-impact teaching practices in addition to a competency-based assessment. The students will not be registering for classes. They won't think of it that way. We will do, the administrators on the back end will do all the work to translate things back to credit hours at this point, because we wanted to get started. We didn't want to wait until we could work everything out with the federal government or with NEASC. So this is how we're doing it. It's our job to be the translators, and then I hope that that translation job will melt as our model matures and other things that we've heard talked about mature. Am I over time?
Yes.
Okay. Can I just say a little bit about faculty?
A little bit.
A little bit, okay. I'll just say that I'll just quit with the PowerPoint and say that for our faculty, we have done a huge amount of professional development. We had a grant, and they've been working, and they've been fabulous. They're entirely supportive, and I think it's the most excited that they've been about teaching in 20 years. People tell me they're at the institution, so I'll be happy to talk more about that. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, it's musical chairs.
Thank you. You can get your right name there if you'd like. Well, I think you folks exceeded expectations in terms of whetting our appetite, and it certainly brings to mind many questions for me that I would love to ask you. But in the model of getting the engaged audience here, I think I'm going to open it up to you first and let you pose questions after hearing these very diverse and interesting models. So we have a question back there?
Yeah, my name is Andy Brucia from Bellevue College in Washington. Some of the complications I think of when you're talking about competency-based learning is around how the faculty handle people moving through this at different paces, how they handle the, when people are continuing to go to class through summer. Our faculty are pretty set on taking their summertime when they want it. And all those kinds of challenges around time and the different focus that they must take with different students.
Could we have Allison, Linda, and Greg comment on that briefly?
Okay, and I can be real quick. My lead faculty are all on 12-month contracts, and so we posted for 12-month contracts, and that's what they had. My faculty mentors are also on 12-month contracts. They're lecturers. And then our subject matter experts are applied at will. And so we don't have any faculty in our program who are on a regular 9-month contract. And we thought that was really important for the very reason that you said. I have had a lot of faculty who are currently at the institution who work with us because, as the president said, it's a very exciting thing to do, and everybody wants to be a part of it. And so if they're off contract, we pay them prorated on what their salary would be, just like summer school.
President Chuck?
Similarly, it will depend on how far along the students are in their attainment of competency. If they really just have maybe one thing that they still need to work on, we'll just bring them back. If it's fall to spring, we'll just bring them back. The faculty will work with them. They'll know exactly what they need to do to get them to finish up. If it's more than that, there'll be we'll use our traditional incomplete at this point, but with the commitment to bringing them back. But we also, one of the things we're doing is rethinking student support services, and we're moving our support service, integrating it much more closely with instruction. So tutoring and things like that won't be as separate as they've been, and the faculty will know much sooner whether a student needs that kind of help and can get that help for them. And I'll talk to you individually if you want about exactly how we're structuring that and stuff. But there's a faculty commitment to do what they need to do to get the students through the competencies.
Greg, do you have anything to add?
Sure. So this is where that idea that I was talking about of having the faculty involved at the ground level plays such a critical role. All three of our verticals now operate on very different term type structures. So the campus, university campus operates on your traditional semester system that starts in August and January. The College of Online Continuing Education has 6 terms at the undergraduate level, another 4 terms at the graduate level that operate on a different time scale. And of course, the competency-based model at College for America doesn't operate on time at all. What we have to do at the initial point is to get the academic buy-in for what structures and governance processes we're going to put in place for those various groups, and then allow them a certain amount of freedom and implementation moving forward. If you were to look at each of those 3 groups, you'd see that each one of them now has their own spot around the city. So there's a university campus, there's a College for America spot, there's a College for Online and Continuing Education. All 3 are close enough to each other distance-wise to impact each other, but far enough away so that they can actually think outside the box about those types of things. Once the faculty got comfortable with the idea that we were talking about 3 different populations, the university campus deals with 18 to 22-year-olds, the College for Online and Continuing Education deals with students who are non-traditional, so older adults, those types of things. And as someone mentioned earlier, College for America only deals with the business-to-business model right now. So once we got some basic groundwork in place and the faculty understood and were assured that the academic quality that they wanted to see was there, then they were comfortable with us putting other systems in place to work with that.
Thank you. Is there another question out there? Oops. Kevin?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kelvin Bentley from Cuyahoga Community College. I serve as the Associate VP for E-Learning and Innovation, so this, being here is great because, again, very, very interesting topic. So it seems as if, the year of competency-based education is now versus last year being the focus on MOOCs, and there was this fear that MOOCs would perhaps take over. And so I've been thinking, based on our conversations so far, it seems as if we've been talking about some of your models, Greg, at your institution, it's a part of the College for America project, so it doesn't cannibalize your existing online learning programs, at least at this point. Although it's interesting because, you guys are looking at 4-year CBE degrees as well. So I just wonder, is there, as we move forward, will there be a need for us to maybe re-examine how we offer our traditional online programs, such that perhaps, we've been talking about a disruption around the credit hour, but I almost see as if there's going to be kind of a new period where maybe we take a brand new look at our fully online, our existing online programs, and maybe make them more flexible, I guess, in terms of pathways. And so I just wanted to find out, to what extent are you guys thinking that will be kind of the next wave to come, where we'll have to maybe talk with some of our staff about maybe offering our traditional online programs in this new way, and will there be fear with our current innovators in that space because of that conversation?
I think everyone on this panel could comment on that, but Laura, why don't you comment? University of Wisconsin.
Sure. Thank you. I think in the realm of an innovation that could readily pass through to the traditional online, I'd say our support model. We have, for the flex option, academic success coaches who do intrusive advising with an 85-to-1 student advisor ratio, which is dramatically lower than even our best ratio on campus and online. And the kind of monitoring that they do and the supports that they do, I think the program faculty and our academic program leads recognize that that's something that they would like to incorporate more into their regular programs. Your concern about cannibalization, that has come up and it has been discussed. I think there's a recognition that the market is large enough, and that we think in the fullness of time that different sorts of students will go toward different modalities, and we have a very robust intake assessment called the Flex Fit Assessment that if a student doesn't look like it's a good fit for them, they'll be advised either into the traditional online or to a campus-based offering, typically within our campus or the UW system.
As an early adopter of distance learning, it's still hard for me to hear the word traditional distance learning. Is there another question over there? Right there, Deb.
I'm Deb Adair. I'm the Managing Director for Quality Matters. And actually, Kelvin sort of stole part of my question. I'm actually interested, when I was hearing the presentation, some of you talked more directly. Really, what I heard was about profiles of students, and that the development of the programs that you have, and particularly SNU with the 3 verticals that you talked about. You were pretty explicit about the 3 different student learner groups that you were targeting in the development of those 3 models. So I'm curious about, I guess for the rest of you, did you have an explicit profile of the learner around which you built these programs? And how does that drive the decisions, these other decisions that you were talking about making about, clearly student support will support everybody, whether you're a face-to-face learner or an online learner or a direct assessment learner, but some of the other processes that you're using, and are you going to have to maintain separate processes and structures for the different types of learner and the different types of learning models that you're developing?
Wow. I think President Schott is focused on her incoming freshmen, right? So that's very different than, or maybe Al, you're kind of doing a similar thing in some of yours, but why don't you two start with the response?
I'll start. The 3 different models in Kentucky are definitely aimed at 3 different populations. The thing you need to think through in advance, and we maybe didn't do this good of a job of it, but we're learning, and that is that students will want to be in multiple modalities at the same time. And will your policies and processes allow that to happen? We are tending towards the restriction and letting the student know they cannot be in multiple places at one time. Particularly the most recent, the director degree, we're telling them up front, if you're in that, you cannot simultaneously be enrolled in traditional online.
We do have a clear image of a student in mind, and it's the alternative thinker, the divergent thinker, the student who hasn't necessarily succeeded in a traditional school environment. And that's for the traditional incoming freshmen. Those are the students we're seeking. In fact, we're giving some innovative learner scholarships focused at finding those kinds of students to then help us further create our model and fine-tune it from the student perspective. But we also are part, the University of Maine system has an adult degree completion outreach, and I've been working on that. And we don't talk about that piece of this as much, but that is certainly a piece of it, the belief that with credit for prior learning, an emphasis on hands-on learning, practicality, things like that, that adult learners will also find our new model more agreeable. And we're really thinking in terms of the folks who are place-based, place-confined in our geographic region, and how we can serve that set of adults. So it's not as important that it be, I mean, they have lots of other programs that they can go to if they want to do something completely online. So it's an adult focus, but campus-based largely, although with a lot of hybrid opportunities.
To pick up on that question, Laura and Allison, are you trying to do something with an existing audience that you're serving, or and providing a new pathway or modality, or are you trying to find a new audience? So Allison and Laura, I think that will add to your question, Deb.
Thank you for that question, and we are looking for a new audience. Extended Campuses at Northern Arizona University, our mission is to provide quality education for time and place-bound adult students. And so that's the audience, but in the personalized learning, we're also looking for highly motivated adults, and they are these innovative kind of learners. And so it's a different audience than the traditional online student. And if a student comes to personalized learning, we don't let them swirl through the other programs. Of course, in the rest of our programs, we do let them go to a lot of different ones. But if they come to personalized learning, they're in until they decide to leave, and then we help them into another program or another institution. But I wanted to answer the first part of your question, too, about student services. We have a unique student services specifically for personalized learning because it's that different. And again, just like the faculty, they were new hires, some of them from within the institution, but there's a permeable flow between what they do and Extended Campus's student services, and a very nice flow with faculty, very much like I'm hearing you talk about at your institution, so that there's a real spirit of camaraderie around student services and faculty.
Laura?
Thank you. Well, we are looking also at the UW flexible option across both institutions, and I believe we have additional campuses coming into flex over the next year within the UW system. We are looking at a new market, and it is, I think, that adult learner who has some relevant knowledge assets and who's has the motivation. We do have a tremendous amount of support for those learners, but not every learner will thrive in this environment, just like not every learner thrives in a large lecture hall. We also have within, let's see. Could you repeat the question for me again? I just lost my train of thought.
Deb?
Oh, the flow. That's right, the swirl. So between online and traditional at UWM, we have a tremendous amount of flow, and we find that students who take online courses have a faster time to degree. That seems like a pretty obvious conclusion, but we have that demonstrated through research. Initially, we are erecting some barriers, but ultimately we hope there will be a certain amount of flow. There are strictures, and I don't see those going away across financial aid provisioning, that would make it necessary for students to be very planful about. So next summer, I'm going to do an online regular class, and while I'm enrolled in that, I can't be in the flex competency-based mode. So it is possible, but from a financial aid standpoint, it's kind of like matter, antimatter. So,
Greg wanted to comment on your question, Kevin, briefly.
Yeah, and I'll make this real quick. You know, I was, when it comes to the opportunities for us to really think about or re-envision online learning, I was sitting here and I was looking at some of my colleagues around the room, and there are two things that I wanted to point out. One is that something I learned from WGU, and that is we really need to think about what we know about the student's experience when it comes to learning. We don't always know. WGU doesn't necessarily focus so much on where you learn, only that you have learned. And the ability, or the assumption that we often come to this with is that students do their learning in the classroom, even in a traditional environment. And we don't know if they learned it there in a study group or through some other source. And being able to have that conversation is something that we have to really be able to pick up on. The second thing is something I've really picked up on in the conversations back and forth with faculty at SNHU, and that is there's the outcomes movement, if nothing else, gives us an opportunity to really rethink the difference between learning and grades. And getting faculty to really appreciate the distinction between the two, and how it is quite possible for students to get several high-scoring grades but not have come up with the program outcomes they were supposed to, is something that really is a battle that we have to really approach moving forward.
Another question? Where is it?
Right here.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Gail Rose. I'm Associate Provost at the University of Louisville. And as I hear you talk about how you've moved forward, I consistently hear support from the top down. And I live in a world where, not that I disagree that faculty own the curriculum, because I do, but I can't seem to encourage my provost and president enough to take a stand on the importance of multiple modes of learning, whether it's online, competency-based education. And I have relationships with people across campus because I've been there a long time. So I've been able to get deans and department chairs to buy in. But, you know, I mean, I'm like pulling the train up the mountain. And so I think, what can I do to really encourage and have the president and provost embrace it in a way that isn't, to get faculty to understand we're not trying to unseat the way in which we do education. We're trying to offer another way. And that they really do support that and would like for us to move forward, other than me trying to beg, borrow, and steal with our chairs.
President Schott, I think this is a great question for you because we're almost out of time. And what should she say and what shouldn't she say to her president?
Right on the money.
First of all, you should just go become a president, and then you can do what you want.
There you go. Yes.
That's essentially what I did. So, yeah. It's hard to know, not knowing your staff, but I think most of us in higher ed, it resonates. Where is the research? Where is the field on this? And if you can get them to engage with that literature, I think if you have this going in some programs and you can get students to talk about the power of it, all of us still respond to student success and the power of a student saying, wow, this really worked for me in a way that something else didn't. Even the coldest hearted administrator will respond to that. Other than that, I'd say see if you can engage with the professional associations that are doing this. Maybe if there are other presidents that could talk to your leadership or your provost and just get them interested in what you're doing. Some ideas. I'd be happy to brainstorm more with you.
Thank you. The good news is that we're going to have all these breakout sessions, and these people are going to be here, so we're going to have plenty of time to ask a lot more questions. And I'd like to ask you first, and then I have a second thing to ask you, to please thank this wonderful panel for coming here today. And my second assignment is I prepared a paper for you. It's in your packet. It's called All Hands on Deck, and I would love for you to read it and give me some feedback of what you think WCET could do that would be helpful in the continuation of this dialogue. So thank you so much, and on to the next